Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Open Your Eyes to the Universe. I'm Gabrielle Martin, your host for this evening. And as always, when we begin our episode of the Universe, our team likes to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, to the sea, and community. And we pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who've joined us tonight. We also like to acknowledge the wise elder within all of us. And it was about 4 weeks ago when we were having a very wise conversation. We were talking with Marianne Lozana, a Raj Yoga meditation teacher, coordinator of the Brahma Kumaris in Costa Rica, and a psychologist specializing in domestic violence, sexual exploitation, and human trafficking. And we were discussing how meditation can be a gentle bridge between trauma and recovery. If you missed it and you'd like to check it out later, then Jan will place the link in the chat for you. But here we are tonight, and we're with Shikha, Arora, and Anaya Tomar, authors of a newly released book titled When the Sky Changes. It's a remarkable collection of relatable stories and practical exercises that teaches children that changing friendship, pressure, uncertainty, and difficult emotions are part of growing up, and that they can build the resilience and self-awareness to navigate them. And rather than following one continuous plot, the book actually explores different everyday situations where children can feel confused or anxious or lonely or overwhelmed. And the stories then touch on things such as friendship problems and changing relationships, self-doubt and comparison with others, the pressure to fit in, family changes and uncertainty. And then they look at things like screen overload and its impact on well-being, stress, difficult emotions, and just generally the challenges of growing up. The central message is that difficult feelings are normal and manageable, and children don't have to pretend that everything is fine. They can learn to recognize what they're feeling, they can learn to pause, and they can learn to develop healthier ways of responding. One of the things that I really love about the book is, and I think it's something that makes it different, is that each story is accompanied by interactive elements called Your Turn. And these provide practical, science-informed exercises intended to help children develop focus, calmness, and emotional resilience, and resources like this. The book also includes illustrations and sketches that children can colour in, making it more interactive than a conventional story collection. It's pitched to children 7 to 12 years, but let's take a look at the book in this trailer.
Some things children don't always say out loud, but they feel them every single day. A word that landed wrong. The screen that steals sleep. The pressure to fit in. The loneliness of feeling different. Anger with nowhere to go. The playground outside. Waiting. Look at the sky. It's always changing. And we never worry about that. We just watch, we let it move. What if children could learn to see everything that way? Feelings, friendships, hard moments, always changing, never permanent, never the whole story. And through every change, they remember who they are. Presenting When the Sky Changes. 31 stories to sit with fun sketches to color, activities to discover the pause button inside. Illustrated, screen-free, evidence-based, by Anaya, who kept meeting children who had no words for what they were carrying, and Shikha, who arrived in Australia with her own sky full of questions. The sister book they both needed back then, a screen-free companion for growing minds that brings insight and empathy. Available now.
So tonight we're catching up with its authors to find out more about what makes this book compelling. Ananya and Shikha, a warm welcome to Open Your Eyes to the Universe. It's lovely to have you both with us, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
And we've got Shikha there too, I think.
Yes, thank you very much, Gabrielle, for having
Yeah.
us.
It's lovely to have you both with us. And I'm going to start with Shikha, if you would be so happy to just begin our conversation this evening. Let me introduce Shikha to you. She is an Australian-based storyteller, and her career's journey spans banking and aviation across Europe, the Middle East, and Australia. And her experiences have shaped a thoughtful perspective on culture, connection, and resilience. She's the founder of Dose of Inspirational Light, and that's an online platform for inner upliftment. She's also the mother of 2 children and a multicultural ambassador with the Community Migrant Resource Centre in Sydney. And Shikha has practiced meditation with the Brahma Kumaris since 2022. Shikha, would you like to jump in now and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book and other things that you encountered on your journey of writing the book?
Sure. Thank you, and a warm welcome to everyone who's listening online. Thank you, Gabrielle, for this really great opportunity and this invitation. So in terms of the book, let me begin what happened 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, actually, my father passed away. And that, for me, in my life, was a huge awakening. And I kind of always assumed that I'd have more time with him. And but his kind of passing suddenly, for me, it was sudden, was kind of, I felt a little bit lost and shocked. Um, Something I've never done before is I went to go see a tarot card reader, something I don't usually do, but I did. And this particular tarot card reader kind of invoked my dad. And my dad said at that time that I will be, that he sees my future as something in terms of some creative field. So, and I didn't think too much of it. And a few months later, I actually started the Raj Yoga course with the Brahma Kumaris. And I was looking for something, and I'd been listening online to Sister Shivani, but I didn't know anything about the Brahma Kumaris. And somebody sent me a link, and that link happened to be an online course. And guess who it was with? It was with my co-writer at the moment in front of your screen. It was with Ananya. So Ananya was actually my teacher. So she was teaching the Raj Yoga course, and I joined her classes. And that's how Ananya and I met. So then there is this little grant, which in the Brahma Kumaris we call the Creative Spirit Project, which happened because another soul who had passed away left some money for creative fields. And I met another friend of mine. Her name was Gurbir, or is Gurbir. And she approached me and said, let's write a children's book together. Didn't think so much about it. And she convinced me that this was something that we should do. But then for personal reasons, she had to drop away. And as she dropped away, I didn't know what to do. So I then approached Ananya, and I was kind of talking to her about this grant that we'd received, and we have to write a children's book, and that I'm starting to write stories, but it'd be nice to have a partner. And it was something that Ananya jumped at because she said that this was something that she always wanted to do too. So that conversation is where it all started, and that's how the journey, our journey began. And so when we began, we started researching, and we thought, oh, what should we be writing about, and what should we be writing in terms of which audience to write to. And then we did some research, and so both Ananya and I spent some time researching, and we realized that age 7, there's actually in the world today, the biggest children's population is 7 to 12-year-olds. And so we knew that was our target group. Yeah, so that was our target group. So because I'd started meditating, the inspiration for the book actually just automatically came because I was just like meditating one day and I'm like, okay, I've got to write stories. I've always been a journal story writer, but I haven't really, thought about ever writing a book. And when I started meditating in terms of what these stories should shape like, it took me to my own childhood and my own personal experiences. And from there, it just became a very natural element in terms of writing these stories. And somehow, Ananya also, and she'll talk a bit more about this, also started doing the research. And it just felt a little bit magical and how the book kind of came together and the stories came together because we were just so aligned in terms of our outlook on the stories. So I'll pause there, Gabrielle.
Wow. So it began with the tarot reading. Who would have
Yes.
thought?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it was really funny because he said he told the tarot card reader that I will be doing something in the creative fields, but I had no idea what that actually meant. And even when the creative spirit grant came together, it wasn't me who initiated it, but somehow the universe pushed me into this and it just kind of all aligned. But now looking back retrospectively, it was just meant to be.
Yeah. And so, Shika, it's a children's book. Were you always clear that it was going to be a children's book? Did you ever consider that you might write an adult's book?
Actually, it was Gurbeer's idea. So, because we had to,
Right.
in our grant, we had to think of something to write, and we thought, let's write for the children. Actually, it was her idea, and then I kind of followed through. And then, because in our grant, we'd applied for a children's book. So, that's how we knew it was going to be a children's book.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the stories in the book, like how much of you is in that book?
A
How
lot,
much a lot. Do you
lot.
want to tell us about that? Because your professional journey's taken you through banking and aviation across Europe and the Middle East and Australia, and you're working in a community and multicultural setting now. So I'm kind of curious as to how does your childhood, but also these experiences you've had as an adult, shape the stories and the perspectives in this book?
Yeah. So when I started writing the components of my stories, I was meditating, and it's an amazing thing, meditation. It transports you. And for me, I got transported to a 12-year-old Shikha, the 12-year-old who had just arrived to Australia with a sky full of questions, as you heard on the video. So I really did have a sky full of questions. It was a big cultural change for me. And as I was starting to write, I realized that there were a whole set of feelings as a child that I'd kind of suppressed because perhaps family or perhaps the society, they didn't really talk about it. And everything was taboo. A lot of topics were taboo, and so you kind of pushed your feelings aside. And that's when I knew that the stories that we had to write had to be for today's children to help them with their emotional regulation. So,
Right.
yeah,
As you're saying, the largest is 7 to 12 in Australia is the largest age span for children. So it was clear that it was going to be 7 to 12-year-olds, yeah?
yes.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when the book actually is published now, and when people started reading it, what we found, or the stories and the testimonials that we're hearing now, a lot of early teens are resonating with it. So the 13-year-olds and the 14-year-olds are also resonating with it. And the parents who are reading these stories to their children or buying it for their children or grandparents, and they're coming up and they're saying, oh, you know what? This is how I felt in my childhood. So we're thinking we're actually quite surprised that a lot of adults are actually resonating with some of these stories because it's helping them live their childhood and potentially heal some of their feelings too as a child that they encountered.
Mm, wow. And are your parents in the book in any way?
Yes. Yes, they
Tell
are.
us about that.
there's a whole lot of stories that are my stories, my real stories. Of course, the characters are changed, but they are my stories. And my dad is in that story. My mum is in that story. And me as a 12-year-old, which would be the reading that I'd like to do today, is in that story when I first arrived as a 12-year-old, if, time permits.
It's quite a critical age to arrive in a new country, isn't it? 12 years of age.
Yes, it
Tell us
is.
about your emotional landscape at 12, arriving in this country called Australia, so different from where you've been before.
Mm. Uh, where do I begin? So Australia, I mean, it was a very great opportunity. Back then there was no, uh, it was late 80s, probably showing my age now. Very late 80s when I arrived to Australia. I was a 12-year-old. And, the funny thing is I have two twin brothers and we'd never seen an escalator. So the very
Mm.
first feeling of entering Australia was that they'd never seen this escalator of these magical stairs that actually went up and down. And so that excitement, of being able to be transported, that's my very first memory. Of course, there was this whole other set of memories because my dad worked as an engineer for a very big multi-corporation, and my mum was a Hindi teacher. But in 1989, there was no diversity much. So the demand for Hindi teacher was absolutely non-existent. And my dad and mum, to find that first job was a little bit of a struggle. So my dad had to take a job in a Ford factory just to get things met. And my mum had to work early hours in the morning, working in some clothes factory, because they've taken a small loan to get here because the Indian rupee versus the Australian dollar, it was not compatible. And so it was the first few months were a little bit hard in terms of financial constraints, which I'd never experienced before because back in India, I'd gone to private schools and we were quite well off but just suddenly, selling everything to move to Australia was a big risk. My parents took a big risk and it was a bit of a change for me. But then suddenly at 12, I had to become the adult because I had two twin brothers who were 8. So mum would leave early in the morning and they'd be like, okay, here are the two brothers and you have to navigate. I was living in Melbourne back then. So you have to navigate the tram system and take your brothers to school. And, I was very sheltered as a 12-year-old child. So to be that adult suddenly, to pick them up, to drop them. And, one of the things, Gabrielle, is because I wanted to do something for my family. When I saw my parents struggling, something in me kind of awakened. I got this in the letterbox. There was, back in those days, there was this um, beauty brand called Avon. I don't know if you've heard of,
Yes,
remember
yes, I've
those
heard of it.
days. So there was an Avon catalog that had arrived in the letterbox.
Yeah.
And when this Avon catalog came, on the back of it, it said, become a rep. So I rang them as pretending to be my mum. And I said, look, I'd like to be your rep because I thought this was my way to help my family. And confidence was not something I lacked ever. So I just then suddenly these products came and I went door to door and I tried to sell them. And then that first income came. And that's how I
Oh my
supported
goodness.
my family.
A- And
And
you were
that's
12 years of age when you did that.
12 years of age. Yes, that's
Oh
right.
my goodness. Wow, that's amazing, Shikha. I mean, you're
Also,
demonstrating a lot of the qualities that you write about in the book, actually. You were living. And I imagine, your skies would have been changing very quickly when you arrived in Australia on a steep learning curve culturally and just in order in terms of, growing up as a from a child and into adolescence, that a big change on many, many levels. So yeah, it's seeming to me like you'd be well equipped to write a book like this. Yeah, you would have experienced it.
that's right. So these
So
stories are my stories. So
yeah, yeah. I wanted to just to check in with you I'm going to come to being a mother later on in our conversation, but I just wanted to touch base with the work that you do through Dose of Inspirational Light, and because that focuses on inner upliftment. Um, how does that philosophy translate into writing for a young audience?
Um, so actually, when my just coming back to my dad passing away is when I started this platform. But before that, I'd always been a positive person. So I'd be sending my friends a little anecdote, a little metaphor, a little, something to just say, you've got this, or, life is full of happiness, or just something really basic. And when I left my work, because I decided to also leave my corporate career at a certain point. And when I did, my colleagues actually rang me and said, "Oh, where are your, our 1 minute quirky positive anecdotes?" And so then when I realized that and because at that time I was also going through grief. So I had to, you know, they were requesting, but I also wanted to uplift myself because it was my turn to get that upliftment that I wanted. And that's when I created Dose of Inspirational Light, because it's an online platform, but it was just about helping me be positive and also creating that positivity. So in terms of the children element, I haven't really explored that much through Dose of Inspiration, but every little thing I post or every little interview, it helps me heal my inner child, if that could put it that way.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. I'd like to invite you to read an extract from the book, something that, and tell us why you're going to choose it, why you choose the one that you do choose. Perhaps
Yeah.
it's something that challenged you when you were writing it, or a favorite aspect of the book you choose. But to give our viewers a bit of an understanding of what the book's like up close, it'd be great if you could read an extract.
So here's the book, but I've just taken the extract and I've just put it on my screen. So just bear with me. So there is a story in here that I alluded to, which is called Little Business, Big Heart. So when I was talking earlier, I was saying that I'd arrived to Australia and my parents were struggling, so I wanted to help them make ends meet. So that's my very first memory of coming to Australia. So that from that book, The Little Business Big Heart, it's a story of Shikha, but the character's called Nisha in the story. So one morning, Nisha saw her mum searching the kitchen bench, opening drawers, lifting placemats, even shaking the rice jar. "I just need 60 cents for the tram," she muttered. That moment stayed with Nisha like a pebble in her shoe, small, yet impossible to ignore. A few days later, an Avon catalogue appeared in their letterbox. Nisha flipped through it idly until the last page caught her eye. Become a rep, start your own business. Nisha was 12. She said she was helping her mum. After school, she would go door to door. "Hi, I'm Nisha. We just moved here. Would you like to try something from Avon?" Some smiled politely, some closed the door, some listened. Over the weeks that followed, Nisha followed her rhythm, a hand cream, a lipstick, and eventually a small business of hand-sewn scrunchies sold to kids at school. 3 months later, her dad came home with a new job. "You will not have to help out so much anymore," he told her. Nisha nodded, but part of her did not mind. It made her feel strong, capable, like she was part of the rising. On her last day in Melbourne, she gave the sewing kit back to her mum with a note tucked inside the lid. "Thank you for every early morning, every bus ride, every quiet sacrifice. You stitched strength into everything. I will always carry that, not in my hands, but in the way I show up."
Mhm. Wow. It's very powerful, Shikha, isn't it? And I can very much see you in it. Well, you've explained that anyway, but in the way that I know you, I can see you in it too. Wonderful, wonderful story. Yeah, well done. I want to ask you another question, if I may. As a mother, Did writing this book change the way you think about conversations with your own children?
Yes, because there were so many, as being a mother, like I never actually got because I was such a corporate driven person. I was always away from my family because my job required me to travel quite a bit. I was always on the road. And so we had a lot of help in terms of nannies when the kids were growing up. But now that I've taken this sabbatical, so to speak, after my dad passed away, I realized that there was more to life than just working and trying to reach that next title and the next title and the next title. So I've done really well at my work. And, the ambition was always to be in the C levels one day of a corporate life. But then it was like 4 years ago, it was an awakening. And then I realized I actually don't know my children because I always thought I had more time for my dad because he always kept saying, come to Melbourne. And I was always like, yes, I will soon. And that soon kind of, didn't really happen so much. So there was a lot of perhaps initially the guilt, but then that guilt translated into healing as I was writing the book. And through that healing, as I was writing the book, I also thought now it's the time to be present for my children. No matter what their age is, they're still living with me. So, it's a whole new world because I'm actually trying to be as present as I can be for them now.
Thank you for that. Shikha, I'm wondering, you've mentioned meditation and you've mentioned that as a turning point, and I'm wondering if you'd be happy to lead us in a meditation now about any aspect that you wish.
I would like to invite you to do something very simple. Just take a quiet breath. And if you feel comfortable, you can keep your eyes open. But if you wish, you can also close your eyes. Relax your shoulders. Now I'd like you to allow yourself to go back to your childhood. Picture your school. Imagine it's recess. You are in the playground. Children are running, laughing, talking, forming groups. You are holding your lunch tray, looking for somewhere to sit. But every table feels full, and nobody calls you over. So you quietly sit by yourself. You open your lunchbox. The food smells different from everyone else's. Someone laughs and calls you a name. You pretend not to care, but something inside you quietly hurts. Later that day, your best friend suddenly is not talking to you anymore. You do not understand why. Someone later pushes you. Another child makes a joke about your glasses. And slowly, you begin wondering, what's wrong with me? Why do I not fit in? You go home carrying these feelings inside you, but you do not talk about them. Sometimes, children do not have the words for what they're feeling. So instead, the feelings stay inside. The hurt, the embarrassment, the rejection, the anger. And slowly, these moments begin shaping the way we see ourselves, the way we protect ourselves, the way we react to life. And perhaps even now, part of us still remembers exactly how those moments felt. Now, if you can imagine that younger version of yourself sitting there. Perhaps you could sit beside them. Do not need to fix anything. You do not need to explain anything. Just sit beside them. And perhaps you could say, I see you. What you felt mattered. You did not have to become someone else to deserve to belong. Just allow that thought to sit there for a moment. You can open your eyes if they were closed. Because childhood emotions do not disappear. Sometimes they stay quietly within us. And years later, one small situation can suddenly trigger that same hurt, fear, rejection, or insecurity all over again. Not because we're weak, but because some part of us never fully healed. And for me, writing this book became unexpected healing too. So I'd like you now to come out of your meditation. But please remember that pretending pain does not exist is not what we're trying to do. It's just to help us meet difficult moments with greater awareness, resilience, and self-worth.
Thank you. Thank you, Shikha. Thank you for sharing what you've shared and your personal honesty. I think it makes the book richer when people read it and they have a bit of insight into the journey you've been on as one of the authors of the book. I'd like to turn to Anaya Tomar, who co-authored the book with Shikha. And let me introduce you to Anaya. She was born in India and she's based in Melbourne, Australia. Anaya is a bit of a shining star. She works in the environment and the sustainability sector. And she's been practicing Raj Yoga meditation with the Brahma Kumaris since her teens and has spent a decade as a dedicated student and teacher with the Brahma Kumaris. Her journey reflects a rare blend of youthful insight, science, and spirituality, and that is indeed a very rare blend. An exploration of the mind, true healing, and holistic well-being, which she shares through learning spaces and continues to enrich through professional counseling training. Ananya, you bring many things to life, and some of these I'd love to explore with you as you share with us your journey of writing this book with Shikha. Shikha's talked about what prompted her or what compelled her to write the book, but I'd like to know what the original spark was for you to write When the Sky Changes. Was there a particular moment, an experience that made you feel that this book needed to exist?
Hello. Yeah, thank you for having us. And I think it happened quite organically, and I personally never really sort of imagined writing a book or writing for children. But I've always had an interest in psychology, in counseling, in science, and the way our minds work, and all those sort of human consciousness, to be precise. And so quite deeply fascinated. And so one of the things that I've sort of concluded with my own research of everything is that, which is obviously evidence-based and it's rooted in what psychology has shown us for decades, that the foundations of adult well-being and adult struggle are almost always traceable back to childhood experiences. A lot of our adult behaviors like anxiety, people pleasing, difficulty with change, or poor self-worth, anger, that seems quite disproportionate at times. These begin in these rarely begin in adulthood, but they are traceable in your classrooms, at a lunch table, in a family dynamic. So these are moments which are not processed very well. And so when this idea came about, the whole journey is quite magical, and it seems that me and Shikha were just going with the flow because it was somebody else's idea, and then Shikha sort of took it forward, and then I happened to get a call, and it just seemed that we were all placed perfectly for something like this to happen. And so it, there was not a conscious thought, but there was always this deep background research going on how our childhood experiences are shaping our adult well-being. So it was really not one moment, but some years of thinking and research. And when Shikha actually called me, it was this, we knew that we want to do this, and we're sort of ready for something like this. Yeah.
And I think that the title, When the Sky Changes, is wonderfully evocative. Um, what does the changing sky represent for you, and why did you feel it was the right metaphor for childhood challenges?
Yeah. Yeah, the title came from a very simple but profound observation. When we look up at the sky, it is never the same twice. The colors are shifting, the clouds move, the light changes from moment to moment, and yet we never grieve the sky. We don't sort of stand there saying, why did the blue go? And we simply accept it, the sky being the sky. And so we wanted to bring that same acceptance to the things in our lives that change. And change is the only constant. We know it, we hear about it, but everything's changing. Friendships shift, families transform, we leave places, versions of our own selves we outgrow. And so somewhere we cause ourselves so much sorrow by holding on to all these things, as if people, relationships, and circumstances should stay fixed. But the idea of this title is that they are no different to the sky, and they are always changing, and that is not a tragedy. That is just life, being alive. So the moment a young mind, a growing mind, sort of understands it and tries to grasp it, something relaxes in them. And this is what every story is doing. This is what the Your Turn sections are doing. It's something in us um, needs to relax, and there's always a margin for us to be more relaxed, physically, consciously, but also subconsciously. So the title is, When the Sky Changes, which is always changing. And so it goes on to say that, in the same manner, your friendships change, your people change, places change, and that's just part of life. And it's okay to feel okay about it.
And so, what are some of the key messages in the book then?
They mainly there are, I'd say that there are five sort of main threads running along through these stories. And the first is the five are like self, friendship, family, acceptance, and strength. And so the first is, you are not what others say about you, whether it's a comment, whether it's an opinion. None of those words actually define us. And that's a very important message for especially this generation. These are the foundational years of our adult life, but also specifically the book coming out at this day and age where uh, people, generations that are now growing up, pretty much they start their life on with tablets and iPads, and constantly being exposed to the external world, and also getting a lot of comments and opinions from the outer world. So that's the one of the threads, that you are not what others says, and your real identity is something far steadier than any of what is happening outside. And the other key message from the book is feelings are not facts and they do pass. So we have a story about a girl who is mortified by an embarrassing moment at school, and we show her gently with humor that the world moves on faster than our worries do. And that's a skill that children and adults, everybody sort of needs to learn, that the world moves really fast than the worries that we carry in our heads. So the stories are written in a way that we can learn those skills, but in a fun way, not in a lecture sort of way. So that's one of the messages as well, to add a bit of humor in our lives and all these moments that look very big. And the third would be connection requires honesty and courage. A lot of stories across the friendship section explore that it what it really takes to repair a relationship, to speak up, to be accountable, and through it is done through characters making real mistakes and then finding their way back. The fourth is that change is not a loss. This runs through the family and acceptance stories, where we have new siblings, moving houses, cultural identity, grief, and all these moments. And so life changes are not punishments; they are simply the sky being the sky. And so that's a whole theme. And I'd say the fifth message, perhaps the most important for this generation, is also that your worth is not in your metrics, not in your likes, not in your grades, not in your followers, your appearance. And there is a part of you that is already whole. And the book's entire approach, the stories and the coloring pages, the illustrations, the your turn activities, it is all designed to help growing minds to find that trust and to find that part in themselves which is whole, which is true. So yeah.
It's fascinating. And your background, Ananya, brings together sustainability, meditation, science, and well-being. How did those different parts of your life come together in this book expressly?
Yeah, I think it all a lot of a lot of things within my work with sustainability and meditation, and and even psychology and counseling training. They have something in common, which is observation, reflection, a lot of reflection, and I think this is what the way the stories are written in this book. Shikha and I both have brought in very different life experiences together, which is why it is such a beautiful combination. She's got her actual life experiences, and I've sort of, gotten observations about and reflections. There are some stories which are personal as well, but mainly it's a lot of interactions that I've had in the past, and a lot of parents that I've met, and a lot of children that I've met, um, and and they've sort of shared things And I've got the opportunity to sort of sit with it and think what would be a what would be a way to heal through those situations. And so it was a really nice exercise. Like, I've grown up so much as an individual just through the writing process, because we have to step into somebody else's story, and then think about how to navigate through those situations. So I'd say that what I bring, in a way, through all these different things that I've been doing, like sustainability and meditation, is reflection and simplifying everything. Sustainability is a lot about simplification, and minimizing the what's not required. So that was an attempt through these stories.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Ananya, that what we experience as adults and our behaviours can be traced to, that are dysfunctional, can be traced to childhood traumas. In writing the book, did you feel any kind of healing occurring within you?
Um, yes, I think a lot of stories in the friendship section, and particularly there's one story about a girl who likes to play a lot and who's quite adventurous, but she has this habit of neglecting her physical body in a way that she sort of doesn't listen to her body. And I think that's basically my personal story as well, because I was like that growing up, and I have been like that in my adult life as well. Like, I won't notice if something has gone wrong and I'm feeling a bit off, or like, there have to be people who tell me that I think you're having a fever or something, and which is so silly. This is so silly. But I find that when I was thinking about stories and we were thinking about different themes, I thought this is also this thing has something to do with your childhood and how you sort of um, dealt with situations when you were quite young, which creates this imbalance where some can be overly protective of their body and health and everything, and some can be quite distant and quite disconnected. So, writing that story, it was first time that I reflected on this habit, or on this pattern that I have. And as I finished it, it seemed very clear, like the problem was very clear in my head. And I feel somehow when we are able to pinpoint the problem and understand it very well, even though it hasn't sort of solved immediately, something in you is healed and something in you is sort of outgrows that problem. So definitely that story, and definitely that whole thing about being a bit disconnected from the physical body was was something that I felt got healed through this writing process.
Wow, that's very personally meaningful. For did it actually surprise you as you were writing this?
It did, it did. It was quite surprising, yeah. To yeah, to know that that's how behaviors are formed, and I could really trace perhaps why, and uh, yeah, I could really go back to what I was seeing around myself in those growing years, that I might have picked up that habit. And I see that in a lot of adults, and especially females. I don't want to say that, it doesn't sound good, but it's an actual reality when we interact with a lot of mothers. I've had times where mothers have told me that they prefer not to get sick. They prefer not to fall sick, because if they do, then the entire family depends on them, and it's a chaos for everyone. And that's quite disturbing. Like, that disturbs me, just thinking that, we are not even giving our permission ourselves the permission to fall sick. If people had the choice, they would actually not want to fall sick, because other people depend on them. And I think,
Mm.
again, that's sort of a pattern that starts somewhere. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of adults who have actually picked up this book, and this is completely, we didn't intend it this way, but we both were feeling um, quite, like a lot of shifts happening in ourselves while writing. And we were writing for children, but those shifts, those transformations were quite validating. And when adults started reading it, not in a way to preview it for their children, but for themselves, the messages that we kept hearing were that I needed this at 10, but honestly, I needed this right now as well. I need to hear this right now as well. And we've got messages like, I sat there reading it and something in me just exhaled, and a lot of stories about body image and things like that. So this was quite a nice experience.
Mm. Yeah, the far-reaching effects are very rewarding, isn't it?
Hmm.
And as it is, no matter how old you are, it's never too late to reclaim your inner child and do that kind of healing. I want to turn now to your journey with Raj Yoga meditation, because you started meditating in your teens, and I'm wondering how this meditation's influenced the way you think about children's emotional well-being, if it has at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I When I started with the Raj Yoga meditation practice, it was quite a revelation for me. And it, understanding that, I think what I loved the most about the practice was that there is an observer who is sort of the observer of the situation, and you can look at the whole situation, whatever it may be. It can be a heartbreak, an anger, an embarrassment, and the observer just sees this, but is not, but doesn't feel that this is all about me. And so it's just observer is observing, but doesn't make it about me. And if we, when I introduced it in my own personal life, this practice, different practices we offer through the Raj Yoga meditation, practice of being an invisible observer, practice of being an invisible guest. These are different ways to go beyond owning situations, go beyond making everything very personal and all about me, and getting into the victim side of things, getting into a victim mindset, and getting into a poor me sort of mindset. And so if we can introduce this to children, at age 7, 8, 10, before the storms of adolescence and adulthood fully hits, we are sort of giving them something genuinely protective, which I felt when I was younger and I got this meditation, and I got to experiment with these different practices. It's a genuine protection from what your mind can make of those situations. We often hear that there's a quote which says that your mind can make hell of heaven and heaven of hell. So that's the beauty of mind, and we have to. It's very surprising that our educational institutes don't emphasize on us learning about our own mind much. We're getting all sorts of trainings, but how do we actually use our mind in the best way, that's not really emphasized or given a priority. So it is through this book that we offer this genuine protection to growing minds and yeah, the curious minds. So if even one child benefits from it, they will see the results, continuous results in their life.
Ananya, I'm wondering if you would be willing to read us an extract from the book that you particularly liked, or an extract of your choice, and you can perhaps tell us why you chose it.
Sure. I've chosen story 21, which is Back Home But Not Quite. And the story I'm going to read, this is about two Sydney kids born and raised in Australia whose family roots are in South Korea. So they're flying to South Korea for their grandmother's 80th birthday, and they expect an adventure. What they find instead at first is discomfort. The language is too fast, the food is unfamiliar, they don't quite belong, and they're reminded of that in ways that sting. But something shifts, and the turning point in this story is what I personally consider one of the most quietly powerful ideas in the whole book, which is what we call the guest mindset. And the idea that sort of shifts the whole experience that they're having is that wherever you are in life, it can be a new school, it can be a new country, a new phase. You can choose to arrive as a guest, which means you can choose to arrive as curious, open, not needing to own it, control it, or make it match your expectations. And when you do that, something extraordinary happens. The world becomes beautiful again. So I really love this story and really enjoy it because it speaks to so many children in multicultural Australia who carry two worlds inside them and sometimes feel that they don't fully belong to either. And it offers them something practical, not just comfort, but a way of moving through the world that actually works. So I'll just read that on the flight back to Sydney, Jaden and Isla sat side by side, half asleep, half watching random K drama clips and BTS videos they'd saved. From the row behind, two voices drifted forward, steady and thoughtful. One said, "The more people forget they are guests in this world, the more they start owning it, and that's when problems begin. They take too much, fight too hard to belong, and end up hurting the very place they live in." The other replied, "Yes, but the one who remembers I'm a guest here, they act differently. They care for people, their family, their country, and the environment. They enjoy wherever they are without needing to control it. They don't cling to preferences because every preference carries a bag of disappointment. Without that weight, they can laugh, share, and see the beauty everywhere." Jaden froze, listening. Isla's eyes widened. They both realized why Seoul had started to feel lighter in South Korea, why helping why helping their cousins, laughing with their cousins, and joining the soccer game had come so naturally. They hadn't forced themselves to fit in. They'd simply let go of preferences and started seeing them like guests, like travelers. Jaden whispered, half grinning, that that's wisdom unlocked. Isla laughed softly. "That's so cool. It all makes sense now. And it's way better than anything you've said on this trip." Jaden threw a chopstick at her. It missed and hit the seat in front. The passenger turned, they mouthed sorry, and collapsed into silent giggles. Outside, the clouds stretched like a soft, white blanket. The world below kept shifting, but inside they felt still, amazed at the realization that being a guest was the reason they had enjoyed everything. Home wasn't one country anymore. The whole world felt like one giant tour. And they were guests passing through, carrying a little light and noticing it in others too. So there's more to it, but I'll stop here.
Mm, mm. And it's very creatively written as well. And Ananya, I'm wondering if you would lead us into a meditation that's relevant to this, please.
My pleasure. So we'll just treat this next few minutes as an experiment and not so much as a very serious meditation, but more like experimenting with the eyes of a guest. And what it means is that consciously we see everything, we arrive at wherever we are now, but as if we are coming here for the first time. All the people that we know, our mind tells us we know them, we know their behaviors, we know everything about them. But in these minutes, we shift it and we create this space where I am meeting them for the first time. Absolutely first time. I've come to this place for the first time, come to Australia for the first time, to Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, wherever you are. Having that attitude for the very first time. Like even seeing the colors for the first time. The experience of light breeze on your cheeks. You take this whole experience as a guest who has arrived for the very first time. And we notice that the whole baggage of preconceived notions has dropped. They are completely open. And everything and everyone appears wonderful. The whole experience has become a new experience, as if for the very first time, just for a few minutes, we can keep coming back to this space. It can be with people, with places, even the face that we see in the mirror. Approach it as if we are seeing it for the very first time. The whole experience is a new experience. Thank you.
I love the way you invited us to remember and take us into a space of complete newness for the first time. It was very powerful. Thank you, Ananya. I think it would be useful to both of you to choose who would like to answer some of these questions that I'd like to pitch. I'm kind of keen to know about how the two of you divided the creative process. Like, did you write separately and bring your ideas together, or did you develop stories collaboratively, or what was the process you used?
I can probably answer this one. And the process was we got together. It was a collaboration, an interesting one because we both have full-time jobs and we both have very full life outside of jobs as well. And we collaborated on first getting the common themes that are going to run in this book. So we sort of chose themes like body image and friendships and all of these themes. And then we decided, which themes are you more comfortable with and which one. And then by the time we had written stories, put them together, and as we started reading each other's story, um, I think now we're at a point we both have, completely forgotten who wrote which story because we've read it so many times, we've edited it 1,000 times, and we've changed everything. And once the book was written and we had even sent it to the editors and everything was in process, I was sitting at work one day and I just had this idea of just very random idea for some of the stories to have a your turn section, like an activity. And this was at at a much later stage when the book was gone out to the editor and they were actually editing it. And in just one day or 2 days at max, we'd written all the your turn sections, and then we found the exact stories to put them in. So that was also very interesting. So it was a collaboration, but we wrote stories separately and then we combined it. So it was like 15, 16 stories separately, and then we combined it. Actually, we had written a lot more stories. Then we had to cut down on a few stories, which seemed repetitive. And we also had the honor to send the whole manuscript to a school in Sydney, to a teacher in Sydney, and she read the first draft to her students as well. So we got a very nice feedback from the class who heard the stories firsthand. So that was also very good.
That would be hugely helpful, wouldn't it? Being able
Yeah.
to have that kind of feedback from children who are your target audience. That's fantastic. Tell us why you chose short stories as the vehicle for these really important conversations that you're having, rather than, say, writing a conventional advice or self-help book for children.
Shikha, do you want to share?
When we started researching, because neither of us are authors, and we started researching, actually, I'd gone to the library and I started reading children's books because I was like, I need some inspiration in terms of what is it that we're supposed to, what is the universe asking us? So funny that we're open your eyes to the universe. So what is the universe asking us to do? Because there's nothing, although as Ananya said, it was very organic, we never planned consciously that, both of us are going to be children's authors one day. So why short stories? I think initially we thought, because we wanted something positive in our book and we wanted something real in our book. And we did dabble on the idea of having one character going through different phases. So it's like, creating a brand like Peppa Pig or, that kind of Noddy, or, just something that character does a lot of things. But then we realized, because we were in two separate places and we've got two separate set of experiences. It was better that we wrote from our heart of what we felt. And so therefore it became a whole set of short stories rather than, again, it just happened organically, Gabrielle. It was just something we did dabble on a character, but then because certain situations, and then when we were both meditating and thinking about what our story should look like, we all came together with this idea and that idea and this idea and that idea, which then became part of the book as 5 themes. But the organic process then led to the 31 short stories. If this does well, there is a book 2. I think we've written so many stories that, the book 2 is probably half prepared, if I could say.
I was going to ask about that, but there you go. You've mentioned it already. So were there moments of disagreement between you over maybe a particular story or an emotion that should be presented to children? Did you have any disagreements, and how were they resolved if you did have any?
Yeah, I think from early on, we sort of we knew that we were gonna have disagreements because that's what happens when people work together. But I think that's the one conscious step we took. I think everything else was just um, quite natural. But this was one conscious step where we sort of had respect for each other's specialities in a way. And so there's certain areas where Shikha takes the lead, and there's certain areas where I take the lead. And it's not a lead as in, I have to listen to you and I have to do your way, but it was more from the space of respect that, okay, I can trust you with this area and I can trust you with this, this particular area. And I've seen it and I know that you excel at it. So it was a lot of mutual respect. But of course, there were a lot of disagreements, and even our writing styles were very different. Even our um, age is quite different, and so we have to sort of put everything together. There were some stories which were very personal to Shikha, and till the last second, I think I kept saying, can we change this? Can we change this? But those were the areas where she said, no, this is personal, so I won't. And so that's where we know that this is where we have to sort of yeah, let go. So and also because we both are practicing meditators, we naturally have this, I won't say as a trust, but we have this knowing that ultimately whatever happens, it is good. And we choose to always hold that attitude that whatever happens at the end will be good. And we were complementing each other. We sort of took that attitude that what you bring is very rare and unique, and vice versa. So we had this attitude, we had this mindset of we're both complementing each other, and the book needs minds like this. This book needs, it's a gift to the world, and this gift needs two experiences like that. So yeah.
I mean, there's real value in being able to honor the diversity of experience, isn't it? I mean, that
Yeah.
comes through in the book as well. So congratulations to both of you for navigating those waters so successfully. I want to turn to a question about parents. We've talked about already adults experience, or not anticipated, but very, very welcomed that adults were finding the book of value to them personally. In your view, should parents read the stories alongside their children, or is there value in allowing children to discover them independently?
Yeah, I'd say something and then Shikha can add. I'd say that it's there are a lot of I know that a lot of mothers and a lot of fathers are reading selected stories with their children. and to their children before bedtime, and that has been working very well in the family dynamics that is connecting the child and the parent. And while I also see that as something very beautiful and needed, I'd still say that it's to have that space and to have that independence with the book in itself for the child to sort of discover and choose the stories that he wants to read by himself. That's also, we've heard some incredible stories around that as well. Um, because what can happen is that parents can, that's human behavior, that we can, something's good and we want people to be good, and so we want to sort of, it comes with an expectation. We can sort of expect the child to be in a certain way, and so I read this story to you. So far we haven't heard of any incident going in the wrong way. And we've spoken to children who are reading these stories with their parents, and they say that they enjoy it. But there might be some stories where the child should discover on their own, and also the parents to read the stories by themselves, because it also talks about, there are stories that talk about the pressures that parents put on children. And it would be good for parents to read that separately, independently. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Another question I want to put in here before we close out is, if a child finishes one of the stories and says, "That sounds like me," what would you hope happens next?
I would say if they have discovered something that's them, we want them to understand that their feelings are valid. We want them to know that different seasons, it's like a passing different seasons, like the sky is always changing, and it's okay. And that their self-worth does not depend on whether it's achievement or appearance or fitting in. And perhaps the your turn now sections that we put at the end can give them that next step to say, okay, let me reflect on this. What else can I do that can validate my feelings? And so we want them to know that their feelings are valid, but we also want them to pause and reflect and just know that their self-worth is not dependent on whatever issue that they've gone through, and hopefully come out stronger. That it's normal. It is something that everybody goes through.
Thank you. And
And
what
also,
about, sorry,
yeah,
Anaya?
sorry. Yeah, and also, if there's a child who feels that ways and wants to sort of share their own experience, we'd love to hear from them. We've got an email on the book that children can reach out to and write to us, and it will remain anonymous. But if they feel like sharing, then that's also a platform, because sometimes I think growing up, that happens a lot, that you just want to share something, and not to somebody that you know, but it can be people who don't know your story at all, and who don't have any judgments for you, and that actually helps. And I just say that the beauty of this book is, in a way, that it meets you wherever you are, and that was always the intention. It can just be one story, it can be many stories, it just can be through the illustrations. This book can find a child who just wants to color. It can find a parent who just wants to sit alongside their children and have that icebreaker and read the stories. It can be for an adult who just needs 20 minutes of something very gentle and very grounding, not very complex. So it really meets you where you are, and if you have felt that it resonates with you and you want to share, then you can also write to us.
That's fantastic. That's a lovely follow-up. I'm going to ask both of you this question. If you could sit beside your younger selves and give yourselves one piece of advice, about difficult seasons of life, what would you say? Sitting
Hmm.
beside your younger self and giving yourself a piece of advice about difficult seasons of life. What advice would you
Yeah,
give them?
I think the advice would be that very cliche, but this too shall pass, and would love to have that skill to see the whole our entire lifetime as just a combination of different experiences. One experience finishes and the other one starts, and there's we get into this habit of comparing different experiences, my life 1 year ago and my life 10 years ago and my future life, and but they are just experiences, and we there's no benefit in comparing the experiences because it's just a combination, and every experience will end and it will pass. So that sort of for me personally, that relaxes a lot of things in me, and it's quite nice to know that, and quite
Mm,
nice to be able to hold that.
mm, mm. It's lovely. Thank you, Ananya. What about you, Shikha? If you could sit beside your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice about the changing sky and the difficult seasons of life, what would you tell yourself, your younger self?
Um, but firstly, I would tell her that I'm proud of her. I would tell her, I mean, just like Ananya said, that it's okay, that it's all part of growth, um, that everything that you want will happen, but everything's also just a learning curve. Um, and I just want, I mean, also not just myself, but I want everybody to say, I belong, because belonging is a very strong word. And Australia is very big on belonging. So I want to say, I belong exactly as I am.
Mm. It's very, very powerful. Look, we're going to have to close. It's been a very powerful conversation, and I very much appreciated the way that you've both leaned into the conversation. You know, you've shared your personal journey of writing the book, what it was that inspired you about it, why you felt compelled, and the space, a necessary space to step into, and the courage that it took for that, and also the easy flow of it. But it's always lovely to hear about the author's experience of writing a book. I think it makes a book um, a lot more real, a lot more real. So thank you for your sharing tonight, and I'm wishing you every success, as is the Universe team with the book. I imagine that email address is going to be fairly well fairly well frequented, and I hope that any child listening tonight or parent can feel comfortable writing to you for more comment if they feel they need it. But our big thanks to you, and blessings to you both as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Just in closing, I'd like to say on the 24th of September at 181 First Street, Five Dock, we have a community book launch in Sydney. And the theme of that book launch of this book is belonging. It's held in conjunction with Community Migrant Resource Centre, which is who I work for. So the two pillars which is the meditation and the CMRC, we're holding a community book launch at First Avenue, Five Dock. So please reach out for that link. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shikha. Well, viewers, we've been listening to Shikha Arora and Ananya Tomar about their book titled When the Sky Changes. And our thanks to both of you for sharing and joining in a conversation tonight with us. And for those of you who are listening, if you'd like to subscribe to Open Your Eyes to the Universe to receive monthly updates, then please email us at special.events@au.brahmakumaris.org. I'd also like to do a plug for I Meditate, which is a fantastic opportunity if you live, work, study, visit, shop, or play in the Sydney CBD. You can visit us at I Meditate at 180 George Street, down the bottom of George Street near Circular Quay. And we're open every Thursday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So drop in for some quiet, reflective time. Children are welcome. Guided meditations, group sessions, or a weekly talk on personal empowerment. And on Thursday, the 10th of September, we'll be hosting a free creative workshop called Creative Reconnections with artist Marianne Kauluma. And it's an opportunity to slow down, to create and explore that relationship between meditation and creativity, using tools, your hands as well as your heart, to nurture self-expression and well-being. And you're welcome to join us 11:30 to 1:30. Our next episode of Open Your Eyes to the Universe is on 26th of September, and we're looking forward to being with you once again. And as we close out tonight, we'll play a song titled Brave by Sarah Bareilles. And until we see you again in September, treat your inner child with love and with kindness, and with some of those beautiful expressions that and sentiments that Anaya and Shikha were sharing with us today. So treat your inner kindness, your inner child with that love and that same kindness. Take care and walk lightly on this earth. Om Shanti.